Hey everyone, I am Angie Holloway and I am the lawyer for doctors. In this quick video, we're going to talk about how I helped a Georgia therapist build a thriving direct pay practice. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to do a case study. We'll refer to this person as Dr. Brain in order to protect confidentiality. And this is how I helped her to scale her practice without overwhelm. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, hi, I am Angelik Holloway. I go by Angie, and I am the lawyer for doctors. We help Georgia medical practices protect their license, their practice, and their peace with concierge legal expertise. A little bit about me: I have been practicing law for over 8 years. At first, I dedicated my practice to litigating in state and federal courts. And now I exclusively focus on helping Georgia medical practice owners protect their practices by avoiding chaos before it starts. Okay, so what was the challenge with Dr. Brain? Okay, the challenge was that she was overwhelmed. She had a very high capacity therapy practice, but she was getting very low payments because she was accepting insurance. And how did we help Dr. Brain? First, we helped her do a business conversion. She originally had an LLC, but she wanted to be able to take on an investment opportunity. And so she wanted to convert that to a corporation so that she can give some shares away without giving away governance rights. So we helped her convert her business from an LLC to a corporation. Second, we helped to redraft her patient contract to make sure that she had adequate protections in place. And lastly, we helped her with her compliance regime, which included updating telehealth requirements within her patient contract and making sure that the platform that she was using was HIPAA compliant, as well as understanding what happened if her provider were to experience a breach of some kind. In 2024, psychotherapy laws with respect to HIPAA changed, and so we updated that to make sure that her protocols were now in compliance with the actual requirements for HIPAA. All right, so let's talk about the actual process and what we did before we get to these results, right? So we talked a little bit about the business conversion and what that process is. So originally, she had a single member LLC, and what we wanted to do was to help her to be able to easily take on investors for scaling and growing her practice, right? So her goal was to be able to give 15% of her equity in the company away in exchange for a six-figure investment, right? And so an LLC structure just wasn't a good fit for what she was hoping to do. So what we did was we converted her LLC to a corporation, and then we helped her with her actual shareholder agreement, right? So we could specify out what, for example, her buyback terms were, right? The fact that this investor was going to be operating as a silent investor, meaning they weren't going to have a seat at the board of directors. They weren't going to be able to influence how the business operated or what decisions or patients that Dr. Brain decided to take on. And that was really important for her. And also, she wanted to be able to repurchase the equity, so the buyout provisions, to make sure that, if she wanted to, she was able to, and that there was a structure for them to be able to terminate the relationship if she wanted to. So that was kind of the first step. The next step was her patient contract, right? So because she was heavily reliant on insurance, most of the language in her actual patient contract that she was using was related to disclosures that were required in accordance with her payer agreement, right? And so now that she was going to be direct payments, she was going to be accepting direct payments. What we needed to do was to make sure that all of the parameters to protect her and her license were now within her agreement. So instead of it being a 3.5-page agreement, we're now looking at a 15-page agreement where we have clear patient expectations, where we have chargeback protocols, where we have her subscription model, right? And making sure that there are provisions to protect her business. So if someone pays, for example, for an incentive package, that they aren't able to then file a chargeback if they didn't use one of the sessions for the prepay package, right? And so what we did was we basically reworked her entire patient agreement so that in the event there was a dispute, she would be protected and able to protect herself from a chargeback, or it also protected her from any types of grievances that may have been filed, right? So now we have an actual procedure if a patient is unhappy or unsatisfied of how to try to resolve that informally before we have to go to an arbitration procedure versus having to be in court or being dragged into court altogether, right? So we did all of those things. And then the last part was to help her to understand her risks with respect to her platform for providing telehealth or e-therapy, right? So she was using a platform and she thought she was protected by using that one, but we wanted to go through and review the terms and conditions just to make sure she understood what the risk profile was, okay? She didn't change platforms. That wasn't our recommendation, but it was to make sure that she understood what would happen in the event of a breach and what her obligations were under HIPAA. And so what we did is we analyzed that. We looked at the indemnification provisions as well as dispute resolution terms so she could understand what would happen in the event of a breach, and also provided her with some advice and counsel on making sure that she had cybersecurity insurance to protect her and her practice. Okay, so let's get into some of these results, right? So she successfully transitioned to a direct pay model. And let's look at the actual numbers, okay? So prior to doing the direct pay model, she was insurance-based practitioner. She was seeing on average 50 clients per week. And her average payout from the insurance company was $40. Now, of course, sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, right? But that was the average that she was receiving. And it took her on average 6 months to receive that payment from the insurance payer. Okay. So she is making about 2,000 gross per week, but keep in mind, she's not receiving this payment, right? She has to wait another 6 months in order for her to actually get these payments. So she's always in arrears and she has this huge accounts receivables. So let's talk about the transition to direct pay, right? So instead of receiving $40 a session, she is now charging $150 per session for a 50-minute session. And she now sees only 25 clients per week. So that's a reduction of 50% of the clients, and she's making almost 200% of her revenue, right? So she went from $2,000 a week to $3,750 per week, seeing half the patients. And at this stage, she is now not working on Fridays and she's able to do her Pilates classes 3 days a week. And so her overall state of being and self-care have taken a huge increase by being able to run this direct pay practice. And of course, the last piece is that her revenue cycle for payments decreased by 80% because her clients are either paying at the time of session and it takes 1 or 2 days for payments to clear, or they are clients that have purchased or patients that have purchased a set of therapy sessions for a flat rate, right? So you get 10 sessions, you pay this flat rate. And so now she has basically a cash flow surplus as compared to a cash flow deficit that she was operating at with the actual insurance-based practice. All right, so how can we help you do the same thing? What I would recommend is there's two options you can move forward, right? The first one is to download our freebie. It's the Transition to Private Practice Toolkit. You'll look at that. We'll give you kind of the steps that you need to take, as well as a quiz to see where you're at if you want to transition from insurance to a private-based practice. Second, if you already know, like, this is what I need, these are the results that I'm looking for, I'm ready to embrace a direct pay model, you can book a Start My Practice session and you'll talk to me for 45 minutes and I will give you at least 3 practical steps that you can take in order to start this transition to your direct pay practice. Thank you again so much for watching. Again, my name is Angie Holloway. I am the Lawyer for Docs. please go ahead and download either the freebie or book a call via the link right below this video. Talk soon. Bye-bye.